will be supply chain, network, and design. Just a little bit about Scott in his bio. Scott is a certified supply chain professional and consultant who works with a diverse client base and a broad variety of service providers in both domestic and international markets. He has serviced his customers through his own business since 2002. In this role, he continually develops long-term relationships with his client base and group of service providers. The niche market for Scott's experience certified skill set is developing solutions to supply chain and logistical problems for both clients and their providers. In 2012, Scott began a full-time effort to build an account and provider base in the Central and South Florida markets for dry and refrigerated logistics service. So, Scott, while you have a ton of credentials here, you're currently working with Florida Southern College as an adjunct instructor since 2014, and he has worked as an adjunct instructor at Polk State College since 2012. So we're very anxious to hear the presentation you have for us tonight. We'll turn the screen over to you so you can present the slides through.
Sounds
And
good.
it looks like the recording has started. So without further ado, I present Scott.
Okay. Thank you, Marcus.
You're welcome.
It's great to see everybody. Yeah, what I've done, boy, I lost it. I can't see where you guys are at. Let me see if you've moved over to my other screen here.
There we go.
I've got to move there we go. I guess when I present, I haven't done it on Teams before, so make sure that if I'm missing anything, somebody's got any questions, let me know so you guys kind of moderate. But anyway, this is something I've worked in the last 10 years. It's just become huge between demand and supply integration. The next thing in my bailiwick here has been customers dealing with their network design and analyzing the costs. People find out things they don't even know are going on in their own supply chains when we sit down and start digging through everything. And the main reason that these things happen are because of cost they need to get control of, or there's a need to improve service because of the customer demands out there. And then the other two items there talks about efficiency and effectiveness, and we'll go into that a little bit more in the logistics part of the supply chain. And here's the real big thing here is the long range planning and where the facilities are huge, because I've dealt with clients, and I really don't want to get into any names, but I've had clients that buy companies and they leave facilities in places that are like out in the middle of nowhere. Right now, I'm dealing with a client that's got a place halfway between Dallas and Amarillo, and they're having a hard time getting the product. They can produce it there, but getting the product out and to their customer base from where they had it before has been a total disaster. And especially now since COVID, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but the transportation costs have skyrocketed. I just talked to a customer earlier today where the cost has jumped from LA to Chicago from like $3,600 over the last 6 months up to $7,500 and sometimes $8,000 to move a truckload of product. So it's really getting dicey, and COVID has really exposed a lot of issues for people. Next slide here. Things have been, again, with COVID have changed, but things are changing all the time. The Amazon effect on businesses has been dramatic because businesses have been forced, and including Walmart. I talk in circles with friends that know the people at Walmart, and probably a year ago, the people at Walmart were all they were trying to do. They said, we're just throwing stuff against the wall to see if it sticks, because they really had to get back in and figure out what they're going to do. Now, one of the things I just read a paper students did on Target from last semester in my MBA course, and Target is pushing for all stores to be able to turn around and do those drop ships to the customers in the area to try to get the products to the customers faster. And I think that's going to be key for a lot of these brick and mortars to meet the demand of the customers, to be more efficient and to be more effective. I think it's a great strategy to do that, and it takes a lot of legwork in the beginning to figure out how they're going to do it, but they've seemed to be getting that done over the last 6 months. And the other thing is I've got a client right now that has moved, and they're reevaluating and redesigning their network, because what they've done, they've had 2 plants, let's see, in one state. One was in the north part of a state in the Midwest, and the other one was in the southern part of the state. They decided to close both those plants, letting go a high number of skilled manufacturing people, from welders to machine operators to all the different skill sets, and move to a new location where they could have more space to put both those operations in and start anew there. And they hired, I think since the first of the year, they've hired 90 people. That's just since January 2021. And they have 6 left from that group that they've hired. So they're really struggling to make it work. They're not making enough product for the customer demand. And it's really causing them problems. And what the product they make is used in the wintertime, and it's all the orders are fulfilled now between now and September, and they're way behind the 8 ball trying to move forward on that. The next thing that has caused a lot of problems for everybody throughout the supply chain is the move to all these different methods of omni-channel fulfillment. The products that manufacturers make normally would go to a warehouse and then be broken down into smaller shipments and everything and be delivered out. The last mile market has destroyed that to the point where you've got to have stuff within the last mile or so of a customer in the area. And don't get me wrong, I mean, personally, situations I've had with my Amazon account and all, they've been failing the last 6 months to meet their demands as well, because of so many people buying online and through COVID and all. But stores or retailers have to have all these abilities to deliver stuff. And a lot of them have not done that. They've hit 2 or 3, but it's got to the point where you need to be able to do almost every one of these, because the customers are demanding it. And I'll tell you, I went through a teaching training a few years ago and sat down and started learning some things about this, and this omni-channel stuff came up, and they said between Americans with Disabilities Act and what they call Quality Matters, and that's part of the education side of things, you need to present things in 3 to 5 ways to the customer base. And in that case, it's students, but it's the same thing like this omni-channel fulfillment. You need to be able to do that, or other people are going to take business away from you. It's just totally amazing how that's come together and changed over, for most of us here in this meeting, in the last 5-10 years. It's just, we just can't imagine. You go back and look at what we did and how we did things and how much has changed because of this different methods of fulfilling the customer demand. And here's the other thing that causes problems with network design. We all know here in Florida, we're over 20 million now. And we all know the I-4 corridor, and especially as far as I can see, the eastern side of Hillsborough County, they're building so many warehouses, it's unbelievable. And they're doing those putting those warehouses up because of the demand of the population. And we all know how home prices are. So people are still moving to Florida, and it's requiring places to figure out what they're going to do. And here's the other thing with the Florida market is there's virtually nothing for people to do outbound from Florida. Certain times of the year when produce is not running. So do you turn around and you put your DC down here in Central Florida and have it also service markets like, the Southern Georgia and the Alabamas and things like that? I work with one of my providers right now, and I can tell you who that is. It's Spartan Nash. They handle a commissary over there in MacDill. Their DC is serviced. It's either serviced out of I want to say Pensacola area or up in Columbus, Georgia, and they're reevaluating, do they need to put a facility down in Central Florida to meet the demand? And they're still struggling with that on how they do it and what they're going to do. The next thing it talks, obviously, JIT's out there. The lower cost manufacturing, I think that's it's still out there, but we've seen the failures in supply chain. Did anybody out there see the story a few weeks ago on what Peloton ended up doing with their supply chain? Marcus or anybody? Well,
no, there's safety issue.
Well, what they did is they spent $100 million to start getting the product in from overseas a lot sooner because they were losing customers. Customers would order a Peloton and they weren't getting it for 3 months. So they committed to spend $100 million in their supply chain to beef it up so they could get stuff moved into the U.S. market or the North American market to meet demand. It's just absolutely crazy. And then the last thing there is the raw materials from offshore suppliers. I talked to the folks at Publix the other day, and they're trying to continue to develop their supply base to make sure that they can meet both domestic suppliers and imports. They probably still going to import some stuff, but they're still going to make sure that they've got somebody local that they can get material from. And then here I've added this in. I don't know how familiar you are with international shipping, but right now there's, like they say, almost 400 container ships worldwide in 2020 was what the data shows. And I put this on the slide here. You can run in there and see. It's kind of interesting to look at. The average container ship, and they've got Super Max and all this other stuff, but the average ship handles 1,000 40-foot containers. That's what the average is. But this is just a map I shot about a week ago to putting these slides together to show you what's going on out there in the water. It's totally amazing. And we all know what happened in the Suez Canal. The Ever Given went right up into the Suez Canal. And just basically shut it down for a week. And what I did is when this happened, I jumped online and I used that same site and I pulled up. Here's where he's at. Here's how much backup there is it builds. And then the next is he's right here. It just keeps building, and there's the ship, what it looks like. And that's an actual picture of it. It basically got its nose stuck in the mud and sitting there. And this is just like any supply chain. When something like that happens, it's a ripple effect. It's the bullwhip effect, they call it. Back ripple through the supply chain of everybody can't get what they need. Everybody's waiting on those ships every time they come into port, whether it's Long Beach, Miami, New Jersey, Europe, Rotterdam, in the Mediterranean. it shuts everything down. And all these ports have been, I mean, they're still sitting. I don't have it on here, but you ought to go back and just look at Long Beach today and see how many ships are still sitting out there. And the reason that we have the need for a continual analysis, Stephen, you brought it up, that it's very important to continue to be lifelong learners. It's very important for companies to continue to just not merge and acquire each other. I just saw a notation today where two major big companies were getting ready to merge, and it's just, if they don't do it right, it's going to be terrible. But you've got mergers and acquisitions, and then selling off parts. And like I said, that one customer, they closed facilities. Well, I have another customer I'm working with and I'm meeting with next week, through the Dean Foods dissolution and bankruptcy. They're going to go from 4 facilities, manufacturing facilities, to 4 more manufacturing facilities. And they're just trying to bring 3 of those 4 online and using the same software and everything at this point. And it's going to be tough. How are they going to bring in 4 more and then the 4th one that they have? Because everything's going to have to be worked out and reviewed. I said, visibility, guys. Visibility and manual labor are the first 2 things we've got to work on when you get into these acquisitions and mergers, to figure out how you're going to do. And then again, the second item on there is removing the cost. We're going to be able to bring out cost to see what they're doing, how it costs them to move product now, and how they're doing it, and finding better ways to do it. And then the other thing is they still have to stay competitive with their competition. And so basically what I've done is I've shared some of this stuff that I'm able to get through my education sources, and to sit down and ask these people to start reviewing what they're going to have to do. And we kind of do this, like I kind of handle it like a project management. I go through and have them start putting their information together, and then we sit down and go over everything. But those 4 plants are going to come online sometime in 2022, and we got to be ready to handle them. Any questions so far?
Just going back to that last chart.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate any type of IT or ERP infrastructure in while you're doing this consulting?
Yeah, well, most of the customers have their own. I do bring in a few tools that I use, but most of them are really kind of, I've signed non-disclosures with them, but me taking their information and plugging it into other IT solutions has not been an option to this point, because the companies they don't want me to take their data and put it into somebody else's hands, especially with all that's going on with cybersecurity. But just not that they're going to get access to their computer systems, they're going to get access to some of their data. But yeah, I'm evaluating. That's one of the things I'm doing next week. They have it's really just an inventory management system for customer orders and for purchase orders. And it's managing the goods through the manufacturing process and all, but it's not giving them the information they need. We went in there, and this is a basic for you all that are in manufacturing and processing right now. We go in there and they've got 1 unit of measure for the items that they're buying. I mean, they're buying product in all different shapes and forms, raw materials. And then there's nothing until it even gets to the customer order level. They're manually transferring that information over into the case counts or the pallet counts or whatever for what the customer's going to use. And I said, guys, you need to incorporate. They have space in it. We went through their software. They have ability for that, and they're not using it. And that's another big thing. I don't know. What do you all think about what use do you see from your IT? Are you using it 50%? 80%. Anybody?
Can you restate your question?
Are you using the software that you have for the whatever areas you're using, whether it's in manufacturing, it's an ERP system, it's a warehousing management system, whatever it is? Are you using it to the best of the ability of the tool? Or are you just using it to process stuff through the system?
It's more of just processing through the system. Especially, I mean, at Honeywell, there's a global design model where it's a standard, trying to almost one size fits all, moving into different plants and different businesses.
So everybody's using it the way it works for them, and then if you do any integration with anybody, whether it's a sister facility, a customer, or a vendor,
there's integrations and linkages there, but there's it's not as agile as it could be.
right? And what I've been told by different people in different IT organizations is that most companies are using about 30% of the software's capability. And to me, that's mind blowing. It's like, why? And they said, well, we're using it for what we need. And that's where the word that I try to use in this network design and everything is stakeholders. We were talking earlier about project management and having super users and everybody involved. Everybody that touches that, I don't care what it is, everybody that touches it should be involved in the process and their 2 cents put in. And it may not be anything that needs to be added, but like I said, this client's using 1 unit of measure, and we go through there and their software has like 8. So it can go from pounds when you're buying raw material all the way through to the customer getting a case count or a carton, right?
Right. You alternate unit of measures.
Right. But what they're doing is somebody's looking at that and they're looking at a cheat sheet and saying, okay, 45 pounds of this stuff turned into finished goods is going to equate to this. It's not in the system. It's on a spreadsheet, and it's like, we got to quit doing that. And I just had a conversation.
Unit measure conversion is critical. You have to have that. I worked at Coca-Cola for a while, and the issue we had was the domestic Coca-Cola facilities ran on English measurements, and then the rest of the world was all metric. And that was a huge mess trying to get that figured out when we were bringing material in from outside the U.S. So
absolutely, and most people do that. They get the purchase order, or they get the ASN, and then first thing they do is convert it. And it's like, why is the system not doing that? The system is set up for you to do that, and it's not doing it. And it's just unbelievable that I call it noise, and that's my tagline. I'm in there to help my clients take the noise out of the process, because they just don't see it. They have, and I've been screamed at for silo thinking. That's one of my phrases I use is it's not your box. There's a big organizational box here, and we need to make sure all stakeholders have access to that information based on what their needs are. Okay. Anybody else?
It just needs time value, money. It comes down to, most of it comes down to money, because companies don't have the budget to put the system in effectively for it to be used as it should.
Well, I worked I worked on a project with Cummins Engine.
Yeah.
Right, just south, their base is just south of Indianapolis. And I talked to a young lady there one day, and I said, she's a summer intern from Atlanta. And I said, what do they have you doing? And she says, well, they have this big file cabinet over there full of federal government requirements. And she was going through and auditing all the paperwork that the government sent them on. And I'll use these countries for an example. Because I can't think of what they call them, but it was like Cuba, Iran, and other hard to get,
Yeah.
maybe North Korea, because they make power generations units, see, diesel engine power units. And she says, I was going through there, I was cataloging all this. They were getting this. It was all in PDF form. They didn't have it set up to show where what items they could ship, and everything was legal, you know, so they were legal on what they were sending to these places. And she spent the summer doing it, and she ended up getting an award based on the work that she did for the supply chain. It was in the Metro Atlanta. She showcased it, and
Yeah.
she showed me everything, and it was just amazing that a company big as Cummins, that's all over the world, they're still got the documents for paperwork. That's how it's still held. Unbelievable. And that's what I've told my clients to do. You either need to find part-time help, or you need to find interns that'll come in and help you solve this problem. But again, like Al, I think it was, that asked the question about IT, they're afraid about somebody seeing their stuff. And right now, I think we all know this, the key location determination is labor for right now. And like I said, that customer closed 2 plants, consolidated in a new, larger facility, and they can't get people. And they, I mean, they're just kind of, they don't know what to do. They're trying to be flexible with the work hours, you know, and 7 to 3, 6 to 2, something. They're trying to get something done to so they can get people in there that want to work, and they haven't been able to do that. And then I mentioned to you the other one that had the transportation problem. They found a co-manufacturer out in the middle of nowhere in Texas, and they're having trouble getting their stuff moved because the rates are so high. And then the proximity to markets and all are another big thing. And we've seen a lot of places up in the Midwest move to better tax located locations where the taxes are better and the incentives are better to move. Here we go through the current trends is you want to have your stuff. And this is another client I've worked with. They're producing product for the Northeast, and they're Midwest based, and they're trying to move everything a truckload at a time to the East Coast to meet the demand, and they're not doing it. And I told them, I said, guys, you've got to produce this stuff on a mass basis and ship it. You've got to move so much product on a daily basis to a facility on the East Coast and let it deliver next day to all your customers there. And they're being bullheaded about it. And when the weather gets bad or there's any kind of hiccup in capacity issues, their customers are suffering because they're not getting their product. It's just absolute insanity. Next thing here is going through the modeling, and this is one of the things that I use in my class, and this is some material from one of the textbooks, and I've got all my references here at the end of my slides, and anybody who wants a copy of these is more than welcome to have one. It's optimization, and some people wonder what that word means and how that works as far as the logistics go, but you have to continually run, again, what Stephen said earlier, you've got to be continuously looking to see where everything is. And with software packages and algorithms and application programmer interfaces, APIs, this is the coming thing, is for people to be able to do that and get information from both sides, from their suppliers and their customers, so they can optimize on a continuous basis with their stuff, with their products. The last kind of, and this is the basic, again, Al, I think it was you that asked me what IT I use. I've got a small little program that I got from some friends that were in the business with another company. And this is the foundation of what I do with clients when they're saying we need some help with our network design. Is we just basically say, okay, where are all your customers? Where are all your vendors? And where are all your manufacturing facilities? I had a student down in Miami who was online. He and I ended up becoming good friends, but he was bringing product in from Asia into Long Beach, and all the product was either going out of Miami, or I think Texas, because Texas was serving the Mexican market, and then Miami was servicing South America. He did a independent study course. He redesigned their network. I helped him go through the whole process for his organization, and he saved them over a 3-year period about $40 million in their spend, transportation and warehousing spend, logistics, because he went in and just did this basic analysis and then followed up with going back and optimizing and all that stuff. And he said it was a great win, but again, his company did not want to let him or the school. I mean, they gave him credit, but they didn't want to get it out. They didn't want to like publish it on LinkedIn or anything like that. But it saved money, and this is really basic stuff when it comes to supply chain network design. Here's a picture I threw in there. It just kind of shows what I was just talking about, what it looks like. We've got all these different places, and it's probably a lot more. That's another thing that I ask customers in when we go in and they say, we need to look at this. I said, how many logistical nodes do you have? And I get a blank stare because they haven't sat down and looked at that. And it's, to me, from somebody that is a practitioner in this, I find it odd that they don't know. How many suppliers, how many tier 2 suppliers, and how many plants, how many warehouses, how many customers, how many customer locations, how many outside warehouses do you have for finished goods? It's just totally amazing. And then this is how we do the analysis. We go through and find out where everything's at and where everything's moving from, and then start digging into where the volumes are. And that's the biggest thing. The one that up in the Northeast I just got done working with, I said, they didn't want to change what they're doing. I said, I'll tell you what, put 3 locations up there to store product and see if it doesn't help. And we started with 2, and they're amazed about the money they're saving in their spend. They're taking stuff up there before the customer asks for it, but they know the orders have to be filled. They're putting it there and turning it around and overnighting it to all their customers. And these are all, it's manufacturer to manufacturer. Here are some of the pitfalls. Is that, yeah, we're looking short term, but we've got to keep things in perspective, and then always be thinking about what we can do. And again, it says thinking in 2-dimensional. It's 3-dimensional because there's so many balls in the air at one time. I've talked to customers, and obviously they're trying to get contract rates right now, and it's very hard to do unless you've got a big volume of business to work with. And the erroneous analytics, the techniques and all, but the data that I've got, that one customer on the Northeast, I had to go back 3 times because I came back and showed them the analysis, and they said, there's no way. And I said, well, here's the data. And I said, oh, you're missing this, this, and this. So you got to make sure you have the right information. And then here's the basic grid technique that I use with students to show them how this all works. Granted, it's going to be a little bit more complicated than this, but it gives you the idea of how the concept works. You're just trying to figure out, do you have the stuff where it needs to be when the customer wants it, in the form the customer wants it. Here's a basic analysis of how I show students. I threw this in here. We just assume all the same market rates from a couple of facilities, and then we are from the sources to the markets, and then we decide where to put the warehouse, and we come down here with this longitude and latitude. And Google, I don't know how many of you use it, but Maps Google has a lot of good tools along with algorithms that you can put together and basically create the information you need for this analysis. This just talks about the grid technique and all. It is static, but this is something that I really strongly consider to have my customers do on a regular basis. What you can do, and this is a real simple technique, is go in on a monthly basis, and I do this with one of my clients right now, and we analyze We create maps, we create Power BI reports. Every month they get it with their information to see where the shifts are. And then the other thing, how many of you are familiar with the Port Tampa and all that they have going on out there?
Yes.
That, I tell you what, that would be a great tour. And I know a couple of people over there. The free trade zone stuff they've got going on, and certain times of the year, I hope they're back to it with COVID. We were just talking about who wants to meet, but they'll take a boat trip down through the port and show everything that's going on and talk about the free trade zone and how. Are you all familiar with, and I'm trying to think, it's I want to call it Roberts, but it's down there at I-4 exit 155. It's 27 and I-4. It's not Roberts, but it's the construction yard where they have the big auctions for construction equipment.
Yeah, out by Lakeland or Plant
Yeah,
City?
well, it's almost over to Champions Gate.
On the,
It's
on the north
Ritchie
side
Brothers?
of
Ritchie Brothers. There you go.
yeah.
Well, believe it or not, the Port Tampa free trade zone allows people to move product from overseas. They buy overseas into Port Tampa. It's held there, and that's part of those Ritchie Brother auctions. Even though they never see the product other than it sits over at the port and they can look at it there. But that stuff is bought and sold and really never comes into the United States except for the port over there for the customers to look at it. And then it turns around and is shipped back overseas. And it's a good boon for the Port Tampa to get the business. It comes in, and they work the deal out with Ritchie Brothers to do that. And it's a huge boon for their business, the other things that they do. And then now, this is the last slide. We just have to emphasize the strategic importance of the design to the whole logistical process. And like somebody mentioned earlier, it's down to dollars and cents. Can you save money and show them? And I'm working on with clients right now on doing some round trip products. I'm trying to say, okay, where's the majority of your product coming from? This one customer has the same amount of product, finished goods going into the state of Pennsylvania, and the same amount of raw materials coming out of that state by pallet quantities. Now, it may not all match up, but I showed them on an analysis they could reduce their cost over 40% by just doing a round trip where a driver would go out, maybe make a 2-stop delivery, pop down to like Pittsburgh, pick up, and go back to Chicago. It would save them about 40% on cost by doing it one way, one load out, 2-stop, and then be done with it, the truck, and then have another truck come in and pick up the raw materials and go back to Chicago. It was amazing to them. And that's one of the projects I'm also working on right now. So it's huge. And then there is a huge need, and we go over all that with each client on what we think needs to be redesigned. And one thing about what I do, folks, I never go in and tell people what to do. I give them the facts and the analysis and let them make the final decision. But I do give them some options. I say, you can do this, this, or this. I usually try to give them at least 2, and most of the time 3, if I can, so they can decide on their own. I don't make any decisions for the customer. I'm just giving them advice. Just talks about that and making people consider all the different things that go into the due diligence that goes into designing the network and what's up there. And then we go through, like I was talking earlier, we go through the optimization. We go through all this for them. We do the basic first, and then we'll go back and say, if you optimize, if you can get customers just to ship their orders a week or 2, here's how much money you'll save when we go through the optimization and simulation process. And then we keep them posted also on what the cost of transportation is. I subscribe to DAT and truckstop.com, and I can basically, somebody can ask me about a lane. They may go out, any of you want to do this, if you get some quotes and you want to know if they're legitimate, all you have to do is reach out and I'll tell you what the analysis has been. And the predictive tool cost me money, but it goes back a year all the way to the last week to tell you what the market's doing. And then if you need me to, I could help you kind of give you some predictive stuff, but I've got to pay for that, and it doesn't cost that much, but each time I do it, I got to pay for it. So, and that's all I have. Is there any questions?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are questions. Don't get me started.
Well, let me drop my share. How do I do that? I'm not okay there. I see you, Al. How do I get out of sharing? Do I give it up somehow?
Sorry, you can leave it
Oh,
up.
God,
Yeah.
I got it. There it goes. I got it. And I've got my reference sheet here too, so everybody knows I use some material from different things that I've done. So, okay.
Well, I just got one question. This has just been bugging me for months. Driver shortage, the driver shortage, the driver shortage. There's a shortage of drivers. What's your opinion on that?
It's the truth, because but here's what I've tried. It's just like I was just talking about that customer going out to Pennsylvania and doing a backhaul. And I've even talked to some providers about that. And they said, Scott, I've got guys, they don't mind going out once a week and being gone for 3 or 4 days. And then the next week I'll have them do local stuff. And because it kind of gives them overtime pay per se, they'll go out, but they want to be home. They want to be home for the kids' ball games and the recitals and the school functions. And I thought years ago that trucking companies would start doing that. Supposedly, like the Schneiders and the JB Hunts were going to start regionalizing their transportation and do relays. Like they'd have a driver leave Chicago and go to like St. Louis or Kansas City and turn around and come right back the same night. Now, some of the LTL carriers do that. A buddy of mine's son works, and I know the kid real well. He works for Saia, and he'll do, but that's LTL business. He'll run every night from, I think it's Indianapolis to Lexington, and he was going the same thing, going over to Southern Illinois, and he was back every night. So he had the whole day, or he could take a day off and be there for his kids. And they just don't make it. Trucking companies have not, just like what we're talking here with network design, they haven't been real creative on how to fix this. It's all about, well, it's got to be pay, it's got to be this. It's their time. They don't want to work 80 hours. Manufacturing is having the same problem, guys. I don't know how it is in the Tampa Bay area. And even without the COVID relief or money or whatever, people don't want to work 80 hours. They don't want to work 10-hour days, 7 days a week. And I had this client the other day tell me, he says, what we're trying to do, our deal is we're gonna pull our current employees, instead of going out and trying to do all this recruiting and everything, we're gonna go to our current employees and say, what do you want to do? Here's the amount of capacity that we have. Here's what we need to produce in a 7-day period, whether it's weekends or not. And if you can get it done in 5 days, you don't have to work weekends. We won't force you. I think the rule is that they have to work at least one or two days of overtime a month. And we need to reinvent the wheel. That's what we need to do as far as
right. So there's no. I remember I was talking to Jerry Kilty. I don't think he's on today. He's there's this body of knowledge with, you got the CLTD, you get CPM, you get all these ideas, but it seems, especially here, that there's a lot of these concepts can be applied to other things, and I think that's one of them. Is that that whole human resource edge of it, where they kind of just treat that as a constant and not an opportunity to maximize and optimize the labor. But that takes a lot of cooperation from everybody, down to the guy who's huffing the boxes into the compactor, to the driver that's loading up the truck, that's getting ready to go out on his long run. And there's a huge opportunity there. And I was wondering how that, if that's a developing thing or not.
Well, that customer I told you that has all that business up in the Northeast and wanted to know, oh, we want to run it all from our plant. And one of the reasons is it takes specialized equipment to do the deliveries. And they said, well, we can send it on trucks without the specialized equipment for unloading because you got to have crane trucks to unload the product. And he says, can you just get us a rover? I want you to put a rover in Londonderry, New Hampshire. And I said, that's not going to work. And he said, why? And I said, you tell me any guy that wants to go out and say, okay, you got a truck delivering within 400 miles. And we did the network design and everything for it. And he would need 3 pieces of equipment to do that. And that's cost prohibitive. And then the other thing is I said, each one of those trucks has to have 20 days of productivity or it's not cost effective either. For me, if I had somebody put a truck out there. And I said, you're not going to get anybody that wants to get in a truck and say, you're going to be gone all week, offloading loads all over New England, and then you're going to be home on a Friday. People don't want to do that. They're going to find a job. And that's why when construction here in Florida is so good, like it is right now, those guys can go work construction 8 hours and go home. And that's what happened. They may have a CDL because they've driven, they've driven a truck, but they can also go drive a truck and deliver local for companies. And that's big too because of this last mile stuff. How many trucks do you see with what we call the Moffats or the forklifts on the back delivering construction materials? Well, basically mostly all the different construction materials, but that's a 9-to-5 job because guess what, guys? If you run those guys over 10 hours, you've got to have a logbook and then you have to pay. And now that's e-logs. You've got to pay big money to do that. If you keep them local and keep them on an hourly rate and keep them within the 10 or 11 hours, you don't have to have the logbooks. So, I mean, that's the other side of the coin. It's the way you treat your people is what it's all about. Anybody
It should
else?
be interesting to see the impact of autonomic driving. I know they're testing it on large trucks. It's going to get to the point where robots are going to be driving trucks long haul.
I don't. Yep, they'll do it until the first time they have a big bad wreck and somebody gets hurt. Somebody cuts them off. They can't react in time.
Hit the start button.
Well, if everybody would have listened to Frank Lloyd Wright, he had a whole separate transportation system design where all the trucks would never mix and intermingle with all the rest. But it would, that never happened.
Well, again, that's infrastructure, and that's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Well, at least go ahead.
I mean, that's the reason for all the 5G out there. I mean, that's is so that we can have the autonomous driving vehicles. And driving across country, Kimmy and I coming back from Tucson, I mean, you've got 600 miles on the west side of Texas. Putting 5G up just to keep trucks rolling is going to be very expensive. Not to even talk about the health effect of the 5G. Not to get on that subject, but it's pretty frustrating. But the thing to do is, I mean, when I work for Purdue Farms, and grew up eating Kent's Steakhouse up in Natick, Mass. Well, they've got Kent's has a huge salad dressing business out of Marlboro, Mass. That area, and they ship their product on Purdue trucks southbound. When the chickens come into New England, they pick up a backhaul, and the same thing with the Kent's trucks going down to Maryland. They pick up chicken going northbound, and you partner with people. And you're right. I mean, I managed truck drivers a long time ago, and it was to get anybody going out, more than 2 days. It was difficult.
But we need, and I think we need to. Everybody needs to compartmentalize their business into that. Like I said, if that customer's got and I can't remember what it was, 1,500 pallets a month going into Pennsylvania and 1,500 pallets a month coming out, it's like why would you not do that? Because driver will do that. If you can have a flexible schedule where that guy can be back when he needs to be for family functions, he doesn't mind running out there and making a little extra money.
Is that the same with the need of the cranes, or is that a different business?
No, that's a totally different business. I've got
Okay,
a lot of
okay,
balls in the
okay.
air with people. No,
Yeah,
this
okay.
is
No, I
no.
mean, yeah, you're right. Having their own drivers doing it instead of common carriers, might be, something to look at.
No, that's what they're doing. They've got an in-house carrier with crane trucks. They can't get enough drivers for the crane trucks. Would
No,
you
I
want to
meant
get?
for the Pennsylvania guys, the
Oh,
1,500
oh
pallets a
yeah,
month.
yeah.
Yeah.
The guy. No, the one that I've talked to that helped me to develop all this is a small father and son company. They've got about 25 trucks, and I've done the analysis. I gave it all to him, and I said, you can run to Pennsylvania every week. You could do it with 4 different drivers if you wanted to. And he said, Scott, I'll start. Let's design it, and I'll do one. And if we can get him to maybe get another one, maybe another small carrier to get another one, because a lot of times that's the problem. Because you're talking about Kens and the chickens, that's high volume. They're probably moving, I don't know, dozens of loads a week both ways.
Yeah. I
Some
mean,
of
that's
these
2
clients,
truckloads a day.
right. It's a high
Yeah.
volume. Some of these clients, like the one you're talking about, that this is a food company out of the Chicago area, running to CNS in Westfield, Mass. He's going out there once a week. He thinks that's a lot of business, and I have to tell him, you're just a small duck in a big pond. I said, nobody sneezes at that business, but if you can set it up to where we can get a backhaul, and one guy runs out there one week, and he has to do it every 4 weeks. You can get people to do that because we can go in and show them you're going to go to this area once a week, and you're going to have a backhaul from here. It works. It really, you have to make it more inviting for the drivers themselves, not just the companies. And the cost structure, you just can't imagine, is 40% cheaper. When they looked at that and they said, how's that possible? And I said, because those ones that run out the middle of Pennsylvania and then have to go find another load, they're probably having to go into the Philadelphia market or somewhere else to find stuff to come back. So there's a lot of deadhead. This way, the deadhead's already built into the system.
So what do you think of the intermodal? Do you think the price of trucking is going to drive that back, or like using rail? I
Capacity.
could
There's
see that.
capacity issues. Yeah, but there's capacity issues with that. But my clients use, and I've got an intermodal agreement. I work with a company called it's called Roar Logistics now. It used to be I can't remember what the name. Integra Logistics. I work with a guy I've worked with for 20 years out of New Jersey. The company's based out of Dallas, and they have capacity issues just because the trains, there's so much stuff moving on there already, and the cost there is getting up close to what the trucks are. I mean, they're not dummies. They'll see an opportunity. Let's say that, like I said, that LA and that's the other thing. There's so many boats out there bringing stuff in. That's why LA to Chicago is $8,000 right now, because there's so much volume moving in that lane. And even if you tried to rail it, it's going to take you 4 to 6 days to get there. And there's the service. And here's the other thing. It gets to Chicago and you said, oh yeah, I'll take it tomorrow. And they're going to say, no, it's here. And if you don't take it the day they want to deliver it, they're going to charge you. And I've had customers get billed for Sunday delivery. They said, you wouldn't take it. Well, we didn't even know you had it. And the rail says, well, it got in here and it was available Sunday, so you have to pay $400 detention on it. It's unbelievable. Things are just so crazy right now.
All right, I got one question, because yes, it is crazy. Don't get me started. This is like my you said
we'll
so
have
many
to have
things.
lunch. We'll just have lunch one day.
Unbelievable. I'm just a little guy, but well, not physically, but
I know you.
You said due diligence, right? It's like, oh, this is killing me with the due diligence. It's like, so with SNOP, because I'm starting my CPIM, and I'm all in the SNOP part of it, and it's like this strategic thing, and long term, 18 or more months, whatever, and it's like, how many times do they call in a logistics guy like you because there's that one phase of the process where it's like, okay, this is what we want to do. Now, can we do it? And it's like, how many times is that overlooked? And I mean, right now, everyone's claiming force majeure and there's no contracts, and I get that. But I'm talking about just during normal time. It's like, come on, you didn't even consider where to get it, long term. Do you run into that a lot?
Well, yeah, it's the path of least resistance. You go in and just think about people, how they do their job. They come in every morning and they've got a list of 4 or 5 things that they deal with, right? And when you and then okay, I get that list checked off, and it's like, okay, I'm done. I've got everything done for the day. What project can I work on? And then all of a sudden they get a phone call, and it's like, you remember this? This was supposed to be. I just had this the other day. On that same lane, I had a frozen customer based in Chicago. He called me and said they're charging me $9,000 for a reefer load out of Oxnard, California. He says, can you get this handled for me? Okay, he's buying it from a supplier in Washington State, but the product's sitting in a Lineage Logistics warehouse in Oxnard. I said, okay, send over the information. I found a guy, one of the service providers that I work with. He could possibly be put on that business long term, and he's got his own assets. And I said, would you pick this up and move it for $6,000 for me? Because he's still going to make money. He's going to pay his bills and everything, but he could get $9,000 because that's what the market would bear. Because that's what the supplier gave him the price. He says, we got a truck, we can get you one for $9,000. So I got to move for $6,000. So the carrier calls Oxnard, Lineage Logistics. They said, oh, you have to go online and make an appointment. Well, we're told we need to pick it up by tomorrow. So the disconnect between the vendor in Washington and the warehouse in Oxnard, you're just dealing with people's lack of communication, or the process just stinks because they don't have a process. It's like, send it over. It's off my computer. I sent an email. I'm done. And that's the other thing that smokes me, is about people. They send an email and think they've done, okay, I've passed it on. I don't have to deal with it anymore. One of my biggest customers used to work for Nestle. He's told me, he said, Scott, if that person doesn't answer that email, it's on the person that sent it, that didn't get an answer. He needs to, if that needed to be followed up on the next day, it's his responsibility to get to that follow up. So it's a mess. This COVID has accentuated it all.
Oh, that in the winter in Texas. Frozen.
That's a supply chain.
Frozen factories.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I was trying to explain to somebody the other day. I was like, well, why couldn't they just turn the factory back on? As of flipping a switch. It's like, it's frozen. Now they don't even know if it works. It's taking months just to get it back up.
I have a student. He works. He's getting his certifications. He works for, I think it's the Owens Corning fiberglass plant over there in Lakeland. Remember a few weeks ago we had a tornado come through there? They had a full warehouse of inventory ready to ship to customers. When Sunday night, when that came through there, it ripped the roof off and soaked all that insulation. It was toast. It's done. And they're self-insured, so they don't get anything. They'll fix the building or whatever, but for the goods in the warehouse, it's toast. So that production's gone. And that's the same thing that happened up in the Midwest, if you remember, where they had all the immigrants working at the beef plants, the 2 beef plants, and the 2 plants that were like 50 miles from each other. Everybody got COVID. Well, there's 3 families virtually in each home of those places that they're living in like clans. So they all got COVID. It shut the plant down. They had no workers. And that's what happened to places as well. That's why supply chains got so stretched, because they didn't have the capacity to produce in China or the United States.
Yeah, good point. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, do we have any more questions? We're doing good on time.
Yeah, who's going to win the Lightning game tonight at face-off?
How many fans are they allowing? Does anybody know?
No.
I have no idea. You must have to be pretty well off to be inside, I think. I'm not sure how it works. Is it lottery from the season ticket holders?
I don't know. I just attended the Indianapolis 500 Sunday. Of course, it's an outside event, and on TV.
Oh, you were there.
I've worked there for 35 years, and I'm pit security, and I had a shield on the whole time. Of course, it was cold, so we had jackets on and gloves and everything. But it warmed up later. But I'll be anxious to see what happens after this, to see if there's any spike or anything. But you got to remember, there's people from all over the world there, so it'll be a petri dish to figure out if everything went okay. And I won't be back to Florida till July, so don't worry about it. I won't come down there and get you all sick.
Oh, the Super
Thank
Bowl
you.
is-
Appreciate that.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I look forward. I want to come over. You guys get a mixer going here in October, September. I'd love to come over and hang out and learn more about what everybody does.
Good night, Craig. Good to see Craig going.
Definitely. You will definitely have to come over.
I live right there in the Four Corners, so I'm Lakeland's about 30 minutes for me, and coming over there. Where do you guys meet normally when you do meet?
Well, we were meeting on the in the Pinellas County area more so than anywhere else. Somewhere between Clearwater and what's south of that?
St. Pete.
St. Pete.
Fargo.
Yeah, I guess it's going to depend on the mix.
It's difficult to remember.
What's the new mix going to be? That's the question. What's the new
So we're
mix
going to meet down in Fort Lauderdale?
Oh, shit. Yeah, haven't been over there in a while.
So what's the fusion of members now? I guess that's what's going to decide it, who's interested enough. Where's going to be where's the center point?
Mr. President, let's see a grid on where the members are.
Yeah, I
Give
was
them
thinking
another
in the back of my mind, when I first joined the board, like, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago, that was one of the projects that I did was I did a map with the addresses of the membership, and a heat map of where folks were at. So I need to kind of resurrect that and do something with that. So maybe you can use my Tableau license and do that with Honeywell. So there's a lot of good tools with that. But yeah, definitely have to look at that. Some of it is a little tricky. It's not just a matter of where people usually have two addresses. They have their home address and their work address. So it's, you're not sure which one folks prefer, but you do a couple of different simulations and kind of look at things. And then also the traffic patterns, as everybody knows, that's from this area. There's a lot more traffic that comes from Tampa, from Hillsborough into Pinellas, for work. So the morning is heavy coming from Tampa into Pinellas in the morning, and then it's heavy going back, and it's significantly different. So that's another thing that comes into play too.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and then normally, Scott, we do in years past we've had at least 2 meetings on the east side. So Hillsborough, Lakeland area. We've even had tried to have 1 meeting a year, kind of over that direction for folks. So we'll be looking at that. This is the close of our this is the last meeting of our year. this year. So we'll be looking at kind of the strategic plan and what we, how we want to set it up. Everything was upended last year, so we're just rolling with it. But yeah, we're gonna get back to meeting face to face, and be cool to shake your hand and thank you in person for this meeting. It was really, really informative. A lot of really good dialogue. Even I know some folks that aren't necessarily living in this space. I think like the ideas are definitely applicable. So that kind of helps us to be a little bit more intelligent about conversations that might be had, from a planning perspective, materials management. It all kind of comes together like Frank simplified for us. The steps in the process. So, Marcus, where are we at with our agenda?
7:32. We are right where we're supposed to be. So, if we have if we have any closing announcements from any of our board members.
Yeah. So definitely, like, first thing I'd like to start off with because I do have a few things to say, just kind of in closing. So if we want to kind of open it up, Amelia, did you want to put a word in for the raffle? I see a couple of relatively new names here.
Sure. Is there anyone here who brought a guest today? All right, doesn't seem like it. Well, for future reference for all the events this year, if you bring a guest who has never been an Apex member, or is maybe just renewing their membership, or has never been to a meeting before, you'll get put in a raffle for a $25 gift card. And from the way things have been going, if you are the only person that brings a guest, you will be the one to win the raffle. So something to look forward to.
The probability is high if you bring one.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Amelia. So I did, one of the things that I had mentioned in our networking time in the beginning was that, had a conversation with Al and some series of things, and found out, I've been working with Al Ford on the board for the last year, and he works at the same company that my father-in-law worked at for 30 years, and I had no idea of that, so kind of shame on.
That's a good thing I didn't say anything.
Yeah, right.
Said something bad about the guy, poor, bless his heart.
Yeah, so one thing I'd like to just throw out there, and I just found this out this afternoon. So I'd just like to encourage folks, if you're up to the challenge, if there's a name in the attendee list, the participant list to your right, that you don't recognize, go ahead and reach out to them on LinkedIn, or try to holler at somebody and connect with somebody, because that's a big part of why we do what we do. I mean, there's obviously the learning piece, but then also the connection point is really valuable, I know. So don't be afraid to reach out and tap somebody that you haven't met before, and just introduce yourself. And even if it's a 5-minute, just whatever, quick shout out, and welcome folks on. Yeah,
I've got some questions for Marcus if I'm gonna be voluntold for this.
Voluntold?
No, not like that, but we were talking about it. It's like, Marcus, it looks like you were doing a pretty stellar job. So I'm kind of nervous even trying to even attempt. So I may send you some emails like, okay, what am I getting into here? How big of a sandwich am I trying to eat here? What's going on with this? It's supposed to be changed a little bit. That's what Steve told me. So I'm not ready to jump in yet. I've got to get some more info from you for sure.
Yeah, either way, we're going to divide and conquer. So I did want to just take a moment at the tail end. I know we're a little bit over, but definitely wanted to extend some gratitude for the volunteers that have helped make this crazy year 2020 2021 APIX/ASCM year a success. So there were some serious challenges that we faced, organizationally, that rolled down from ASCM to, some changing, unforeseen changes in the leadership, on the board, to, education things being restructured, to websites being changed, to programs being planned virtually as opposed to in person, and the difficulties that have gone on there. So I just wanted to extend. Unfortunately, Jane's not here, but wanted to send a thank you out to her. I mean, she was just super helpful. Jumped in on the finance when somebody left. Our board member left mid-year on the finance, so she not only was doing the secretary position and keeping the meeting minutes for our board meetings and keeping us on track there, but jumped in, without little, just jumped right in and grabbed the bull by the horns with the finances, and kept that rolling. So, and she's volunteered to do that into next year. So huge thank you to her for doing that. And I sent her a text because I know she's out of state right now and vacationing and visiting her family in Nebraska, but just wanted to put her in the spotlight there. Amelia, fantastic job. Really appreciated all the work. Did all the website changes with the ASCM Florida, and then redid them all, and then just kind of working with what exactly is ASCM looking for here, and just the frustration that went on with that, and you persevered with that, and the ideas that you brought out with the futures committee. Angela Siciliano, she wasn't able to attend tonight. She was our VP of programs. She helped out with that as well. Marcus, you've been in the programs role for 4 years now?
Well, some point in 2017.
Okay.
But it's close. I guess that's close to 4.
Yeah, so just huge thank you to you, Marcus. I know you're not going to be able to come back next year because you've got some things that are in the works, possibly a relocation out of state coming up, and just some big things that are happening there. But really big thank you for not only tonight's event, but all your service over the last 4 years. Seriously, really thank you for all that you've done, Marcus. And I know it's been a lot, and that's why we're kind of reorganizing things a little bit to spread some of the load for all the work that goes into the programs, to kind of share that and make it a little bit of a lighter role for whoever comes up behind you, because they've got some shoes to fill. So thank you for that, Marcus.
Yeah, just a little bit. They'll get some support in the audio. I still have contacts, like we talked about support tonight. I have been in contact with the port. They're ready to service us again when we're ready. The airport as well for the other portions. So there are some other tours that are still becoming available. We just probably aren't ready as a chapter to go through it. So I still have those contacts when we're ready to go out there and do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I know you've put in a lot of hours over the last 4 years in making our chapter successful and creating value for the membership. So, on behalf of the membership, thank you for that, Marcus. Next, let's see. Catherine isn't able to join us tonight, but she's been a director at large over the last year. She also helped with the futures committee. James Moore, our director of career services. James placed Tim Duncan, helped him. He was in transition, lost his job at Honeywell, and working with James, first class certified career coach, as well as director of operations, supply chain extraordinaire. So thanks for all that you do, James, on the career services side. Seriously, that's a big arm of the value that we offer to our 270 members in the Tampa Bay Forum. So thank you for that, James. And then let's see, welcome. So to our new board, the new members that are coming in, team members. Tim Duncan was the career services manager, and as I mentioned, James helped him find his next opportunity. So he's able to land a job at Baxter Medical. here, didn't even have to relocate. And so he's volunteered to step up as the VP of membership. So more to follow from Tim and reaching out and how he can help just drive engagement and make sure that we're doing the right things for our members. Liz, and I apologize if I get your name wrong, Calden Buckholes.
Really good. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Calden Buchholz.
Buchholz. Yeah,
Buchholz, that's what it is.
Yeah, they do it German, not Americanized.
Okay. So welcome to you, Liz. You're going to be on as a director at large, kind of getting oriented, a relatively new ASCM member, and really excited to get you plugged in and integrated into the team and helping out with some projects and stuff. Let's see, who else do we have new? I think that's all that we have. Oh, Al, I'm sorry.
I'm new. I haven't done
you.
anything since I've been here, so
Yeah,
I've
no
just been
worries.
listening the whole time. So
No, good stuff though. But yeah, looking forward to. Thank you for your service. You've been regularly attending and ask really good questions and looking to kind of tap your unique giftings and talents to help move us forward. So we've got a really big year ahead of us because we're going to be doing something different, which we've never done before, which is offering virtual meetings as simultaneously while we're doing in-person meetings. So that's going to be a new endeavor that we're going to do, as well as, just kind of launching things forward, out of this
that's
COVID.
ambitious.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to take time to just say thank you for everybody, our volunteers. I mean, you really are the backbone. And again, thank you to our members, folks that are here tonight, as well as, people that registered and weren't able to attend. Scott, we had 14 on tonight. There were, I think, last I checked, 22 that had registered. So they'll have access to the presentation tonight. But huge thank you to folks that are just dedicated to their professional development and consistently show up. So appreciate that engagement and look forward to meeting y'all face to face. I think that's all that I have. Does anybody else have anything from the board or members that are here attending?
I just want to say thank you guys. I've received a lot of support. Craig was my mentor when I came on, as well as Tyler, who hasn't been on in a while, but they assisted me very well, and guided me and helped. It was unfamiliar, but was able to get through. So, Al, it'll be about the creativity of your thinking. And
I'm great in the creativity department, just not in the execution flawlessly department thing. That's all.
Look, when you got James there too, I forgot to give James some credit because he provided a lot of.
Yeah, he was there back when I was way back. I remember him. He's Superman to me. We'll see.
So I just want to first of all thank Scott for a really great presentation.
Absolutely, Scott.
And the rest of the board members. But I just wanted to give a special shout out to Steve and his leadership for this, as it was said earlier, crazy Apex ASCM 2021 year that we just went through. I know we had a discussion earlier that in my time with Apex, this has been before this 2008 when the economy crashed was the most turbulent time, but this by far going through the COVID experience, the pandemic has been much more, I'll use the term disruptive because it was very disruptive to all of us, both personally and professionally. And I just want to thank Steve for his leadership throughout the entire pandemic of the chapter. And Steve, I just want to say that you were put here for such a time as this.
Yeah, James, appreciate that, James. It's definitely a group effort. I mean, leaned on you heavily as a prior president, the experience that other folks brought. Jerry Kilty's not here, but obviously he's a huge, pillar to the chapter and helped navigating. Monica Lammert, just, we just as a team, really rallied to, it wasn't pretty the whole way through, but I think, relatively speaking, I think we had a couple of months where I think there were maybe, one or two meetings where we had, it was some real challenges, low attendance getting, I think probably from communication stuff, but we were able to work through that. And I think, have events that went executed were well, continue to come up with ideas about things that are going to move us forward. We've got some new team members that are joining the board, so it's not a vacuum with Marcus leaving and Angela leaving. So yeah, just a huge shout out to the whole team. I mean, we just really had some good synergy and moving forward with things. So hopefully my goal for next year is to have shorter board meetings. So we had some tough ones because there was some real issues that we had to muddle through and make decisions on, and it was challenging, but thank you to everybody for being here and just walking alongside. So thank you for that, James. So I think that this, Marcus, unless you have something else, will conclude our 2020-2021 session year.
Yeah. I was about to say, is that how you say it? Well, I guess it is. I don't know. It'll be 2021.
Yeah,
come back in September.
A safe summer.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Steve, can I ask one question before you go?
Yes, sir.
Would somebody send me some information about you guys and maybe getting signed up?
Sure. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
I will do that, Scott.
All right. I appreciate it. I sent you one before you mentioned that LinkedIn thing. I looked you up and sent you a LinkedIn connect request. So, and then you said it about 2 seconds later. But no.
Yeah, my profile needs some work. James has got a guy. I got it on the list.
No, I don't look
or
at all that.
I'm supposed to be talking to that guy too.
I was connected with Steve last week. I can't believe I didn't have him. I wasn't connected. Jeez, I didn't even know that.
We'll connect. I'll get you some information, Scott. Thanks so much for the presentation tonight, and we definitely look forward to maybe having you again as a speaker. This was really great. Wish that we could have had more folks on tonight because they really missed some good good presentation. You obviously really know your craft, and it's great dialogue tonight as well, which is a good sign of a really good meeting too. So.
Well, thanks. But when you turn 60 years old, there is a lot of stuff in the background to share. But no, thanks guys. And I want to get connected with you. I've talked to Monica about it. Now her and I are going to be cohorts over at Polk. So she can keep me up to date, and driving over there doesn't bother me. I got a couple of clients. One's in Largo and another one is in Clearwater. So I got an excuse to be over there on the day I need to be.
Cool. Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right, send up my connection.
All right, let's go Lightning.
Go Bolts.
You guys have a good night.
All right, you have a good
Thanks,
night.
everyone. Take care.
Have a good summer.
Tammy.
Good night.
Bye now.
Bye.
All right, good night.